So while everyone is busy shaking their monkey with Donkey Kong Bonanza on the Nintendo Switch 2, another game did indeed come out for the system, a Metroidvania game called Shadow Labyrinth. Now, I am a fan of Metroidvania games. I enjoy the Metroid 2D games that have the Vania aspect to them. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow. I love these games. They're awesome. I love indie ones. So Shadow Labyrinth looked kind of interesting to me because, hey, you know, Metroidvania games are fun. There's lots of collectibles, lots of exploration, things that I enjoy in a game. So I have put about 4 or 5 hours or so into this game. And I didn't really know like what kind of video I was going to make on it, but I kind of just want to talk about the game and talk about my experience thus far because I don't know if I'll be going back to it. I don't know if I'm going to continue playing this game, but I do feel like there are people that this game is going to totally click with, they're going to resonate with it, and they're going to have a great time with it. I just don't know if I'm one of those people. So if you think this video is kind of half-assed because I'm just going to record some gameplay of me playing the game in an earlier section of the game that, you know, and just kind of talk over it, whatever, dude, like maybe it is. But I just wanted to talk about this game, share my thoughts on it, and then maybe you can decide whether or not this is a game you want to pick up. Shadow Labyrinth story, I don't know what the hell is going on, man. I don't know. It starts out with some weird scene on a spaceship, and then all of a sudden you're on the ground and you're an armless individual, and Puckman comes along and he's like, "What's up? Wake up, homie. Here's an arm and here's a sword, and now we're in this world and you're going to do my bidding." You come across different characters who talk about them also being sword fighters in a previous life within the world and stuff. I really don't know what's going on. And I thought maybe that was just a me problem. I looked around at some reviews and a lot of reviews said they had no clue what was happening in the story. So I feel a little bit less bad about myself. You know, there's like things that you could pick up within the world that kind of give like a little story and context into what is happening, but a lot of it is just over-explained and over-convoluted and stuff like that. Maybe there's some plot twists that happen. You know, you come across boss battles and there's usually a dialogue and you're kind of learning about why Puckman is here in the world and stuff like that. I don't really know. It never really clicked with me, which is fine. Like, you know, Metroidvania games, they don't necessarily really need a great story or anything like that, but that was just kind of my experience thus far with the story. Presentation-wise, it's kind of a mixed bag, I feel. This is a $30 game, so it is a budget game. And on a technical level, like as far as like resolution and frame rate is concerned, everything is very smooth. It's the art style that I'm not 100% sold on. I don't think it's bad, but it's just kind of a bit bland. You know, it's kind of... It kind of lacks a little bit of personality, I feel. You know, they kind of went with like muted colors and, you know, a muted drawing style, almost like a little bit of an anime style. But, you know, it's fine. Some areas look better than others. Some areas look more interesting than others. You know, the characters, they all look kind of a bit like paper mache kind of thing going on. It's fine. I do like that there is like a day and night cycle in the game, but there's really no like indication that there is. So like you'll revisit an area because you do have to backtrack. I mean, it is a Metroidvania game, people, and like it'll be like a different time outside, and like that's a nice little touch. I felt it wasn't something that was like fully talked about or explained. It just kind of happened and I noticed it. I was like, oh, this area was bright and sunny before and now it's dark out because it's nighttime. I like little things like that. I do think the audio of the game is very well done. There's no like voices or anything like that, but like the music kind of builds you up and like builds to a point. It's a bit minimalistic, but I think it serves a job well done. Puckman, Pac-Man, whatever you want to call him, has his little noises. I don't know if it's because I pre-ordered the game, but when you're in Puckman mode, you know, and you're picking up the little gold pellets in order to upgrade your character, you do hear the traditional Pac-Man noise. I think that's kind of cool. I don't know. The audio design, I think, is actually pretty decent in this game. It's just the visuals. They're not bad. They're serviceable, but they're not great. Of course, though, you're playing a Metroidvania for the gameplay. And the gameplay, I think, is pretty good with some heavy caveats. I definitely have some heavy caveats with the gameplay of this game. So initially, you have a 3-hit combo with your sword, and as you progress throughout the game, you will unlock different abilities. So it's pretty standard stuff. You can upgrade your sword. You can upgrade the amount of health that you have. You can also do like a dodge attack that will allow you to like get past like environmental hazards or stuff like that, or an enemy attacking you. Like it creates a shadow behind you that will allow you to dodge enemy attacks and stuff like that. That does take up a bar that you have. That's kind of like your it's not really magic, but it's kind of magic as far as that is concerned. As you play throughout the game, you unlock different abilities that also will drain that bar, but it fills up pretty quickly. So, you know, you get some additional attacks and stuff like that. And that's pretty much how the sword fighter plays. You eventually do get more things that the sword fighter can do, but that's, you know, your first few hours of the game will be primarily that and just exploring around this world. And then you have the Puckman side of things, or the Pac-Man side of things, where there's like a rail system and you turn into the Puckman, and then you go on these rails. And from there, you can also attack enemies, and you're collecting coins, and you're actually platforming, or not coins, gold, that you basically use to upgrade your character. And that's kind of interesting. You know, it's a different mechanic. I think it plays pretty decently. It controls, you know, decently enough. Like you can choose the trajectory that you want Pac-Man to go on in order to, you know, get to another rail system or avoid an enemy or attack an enemy. There are a few times here and there where it's like, you know, you might mess up and jump to the wrong place, but it's not super detrimental. And so, like, the Pac-Man portion is cool. I also forgot to mention that when you're playing as the sword fighter, you do get like your health bar, and then you have an additional healing that you can activate as well that will be revitalized at checkpoints or save points that you come across in the game. So you technically have 2 health bars with it, but you have to manually do it. And then you have like a third thing. After you fight a boss pretty early in the game, you then get like the weird mech animal creature from outer space thing that you could kind of control, and that is on like a limited timer thing, and they have like really beefy attacks and stuff like that, and you know, they move a bit faster, but of course you can only use it for a limited time. And I actually kind of like the different play styles that you have within this game, because I feel like it kind of makes it stand out a little bit. It makes it feel a bit unique than most Metroidvania games that are just, you know, they don't really have like different summons and stuff like that. So this is actually pretty cool. You can also use the weird mech creature alien thing to grab enemies that you've killed and harvest their resources, because early in the game you come across this dude who wants to like help you level up some stuff, and then like you need like these certain items and resources, and you're like, how the hell do I get those? And then you end up getting that with the ability that you have. You can do that ability when you're in sword fighter mode as well. You don't have to be in the mech mode, which is draining a meter that goes down pretty fast. So that's kind of cool. You can constantly get the resources. My problem with the gameplay is I feel like there's a lot of cheap deaths. I just feel like they sometimes put you in a situation where it's like, you know, next thing, you know, you just end up getting like knocked around and like comboed essentially, and then you're dead. And checkpoints are decently placed, but there are some checkpoints that are not like super decently placed, and it's a game where you don't know where you're going. Like a lot of Metroidvania games, it's like, okay, this is your main objective. You need to go here, so you go there. This game is very unlinear in that regard. They just say, hey, go, find stuff, find your next objective, see if you can figure it out. Escape the Great Tree. Well, the Great Tree has a bunch of crap going on with it, with a bunch of different branching paths, some of them with dead ends when you finally get there because you don't have that ability. And like, I know that's kind of, you know, maybe you're just conditioned. Maybe I'm just conditioned to, you know, most Metroidvania games at least having a centralized point where you have to go to, and then you can explore on your own. But it definitely feels a bit like throwback. And I think some people will like that. I think some people will appreciate that. For me, it's kind of like, well, you know, I'm kind of wasting time going on these routes that I can't do anything with. And then if I end up dying, then I'm back to the checkpoint that I got to. You know, everything controls decently enough. Sometimes it does feel a little bit floaty in regards to stuff like that as far as jumping and platforming. Sometimes you'll end up just, you know, getting caught in a combo of enemies because they're oddly positioned, and then you're dead. And then it's like, oh shit, I forgot to use the, like, why can't the health thing just automatically do it when it's like super low or something like that? Like, you actually have to manually press a button here. I know I'm very rambly with this, but like, I do like some aspects of the game, but I just don't feel compelled to keep playing it. And maybe it's a combination of, you know, not really loving the art style, the gameplay being solid, but a bit frustrating, and then the complete lack of any sort of coherent story. I think these three elements just kind of sour the game for me a little bit. But like I said, I honestly feel like there are people that are going to love this game, that are going to resonate with things like the difficulty, which I hear completely ramps up as you get further on into the game. They're going to like the minimalistic art style, the lack of any sort of direction, you know, having that sort of focus more so on exploration. And they're not going to mind the story, or I don't know, maybe they're super into mechs and stuff like that. I don't know, man. I don't think it's a bad game. I don't think it's a great game. I'm not even sure if I think it's a good game. Yeah, solid, middle of the road, $30 for a new Metroidvania. If you're a diehard Metroidvania fan, you'll probably have some fun. Maybe. I don't know. Let my words and let the video game footage guide you to see if you should buy this game. And yeah, that's all I got to say about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it wasn't the best video in the world, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. It's not the best game in the world, so I'm not going to put my best foot forward for it. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.